Thanks for downloading the Swearing In podcast, where you'll hear the origin stories of those who chose to serve. So ground your gear, take a seat, and listen up. The Swearing In podcast starts right now. Hello, America, and welcome back to the Swearing In podcast. I am your host, Marty Smith. Today, my guest is former Army Specialist 5, Jerry Casados. Jerry grew up in Denver and joined the Army in 1969. His MOS was 74 Delta, Automated Data Processing System Machine Operations Specialist. He went to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and was then assigned to the Army Security Agency at Kagnew Station, Ethiopia. So there's some background on Jerry. Now let's get on with his story. Today I'm joined by Jerry Casados, former Specialist 5, or an E5, from the United States Army. Jerry, thanks for coming on today and taking the time.
Sure, my pleasure. I appreciate the time to talk about this.
So this is, I think it's a fascinating point in our history that gets kind of broad brushed. You know, you say Vietnam War, and you're just instantly covered from 65 to 75, and everybody's an infantryman, and everybody was a hippie, and everybody was hating it. So it's just so broad brushed by history and movies and everything else. So I'm really fascinated by your story, coming in and did what you did. You joined in 1969. Is that right, Jerry?
Correct, yes.
And where were you growing up? What were you doing before that? And what led you to that decision?
Well, I grew up in Denver, Colorado, in the city, northeast Denver, Curtis Park area.
Oh.
And I went to Catholic schools all my life. Good Catholic kid here.
What high school did you graduate from?
I went to Cathedral High School, which is no longer around. It used to be Central Catholic.
Okay.
But it was actually in 18th and Logan, so it's in the middle of the city, pretty much.
Oh yeah, I know, right? Or I know that area. Anyway.
Yeah. But I went to high school, and pretty much lived my whole life in Denver, other than the military. I graduated in 1967.
Okay.
But as soon as I got out of high school, I decided to go into computer programming to a business college here in Denver, Park School of Business, because a couple of my buddies we talked about this, computers, that's the new thing. So especially in 1967, nobody heard about them that much, or in the government pretty much. But these big IBM rooms full of computers. So I decided I want to be a computer programmer, just fascinated with the futuristic stuff that I heard about. So
that is really visionary. Unbelievably visionary in 1967.
Yeah, I don't know what just fascinated me. So I went to Park School of Business. It was a 2-year business college.
Okay.
So right after graduation, maybe 2 weeks afterwards, had to basically started school in the summer. So then I worked part-time too. So, and I was classified back then. Of course, they had the draft in 67.
Okay.
We all got classified. You got your draft card in the mail.
Wow.
And I got classified as 1S, which is a student. So if you're in college, you were basically not a 1A, was the ones you get drafted right away. So they had different other classifications too. I can't remember them all.
Now let me ask you. Even you had a 1S,
mm-hmm.
Which was good for you, but it still kind of had to be a little sobering to receive that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, as you can imagine, in that era, in the 60s and early 70s, a draft was going on, and it was on everybody's mind. If you're a young man at that age, teenager, high school, whatever it may be, it was always in the back of your mind that you're going to get drafted somehow. Maybe you're not, you don't know. So you thought about it. So, but going back maybe a little bit in high school, the Vietnam War was going on. Of course, it started it's actually in the 50s and into the 60s,
sure. Right.
But scaled up in the late 60s. And but even in high school, when I was like maybe a junior, senior, over the PA, you hear these announcements about such and such last year's senior classmate was killed in Vietnam. So it was just those kind of things. You really made you think, well, what's going on over there? I didn't really know much other than what we saw on TV. It's like, body counts. It's interesting.
Right.
Body counts.
Right.
The Vietnamese. There's always more Vietnamese than there were GIs, but
right.
Right. It came across the screen that way, and it just, it was there. It was. I mean, everybody saw it and was aware of it. Whether it was a good war, or bad war, I wasn't real sure. But anyway, so those things happened in high school, and then what really hit me when a classmate of mine, Larry Vargas was his name. I ran track in high school. I had 2 years of track, and he came out for the track team in his senior year because he wanted to get in shape. He was going into the Marines. I said, okay, cool, man. And so after high school, he graduated, and about a year later, heard that he was killed in action in Vietnam. He was a mortar operator. So having to go to a funeral of a high school classmate was, kind of sobering in a way. It's just like,
to say the
what's
least,
going on over there?
Right.
So, then also other guys in their neighborhood, because, we were in lower middle class neighborhood, mostly Hispanics and Blacks and a few Asians and stuff. So it was not real high end neighborhood. But anyway, a lot of these guys older than me were going to the Vietnam, getting drafted, and actually most of them came back. But what struck me though was just a couple of guys came back, and I remember this one instance. Went out with this guy named Bob. He lived a couple blocks. Went to school with him. Came back from Vietnam, and Bob was a fun-loving guy, but when he came back, he's changed. He was different. We went out one night to a club and just saw that's not Bob. He's just kind of here. It's not really So that's the trauma of war, because back then it was pretty much Vietnam, and then they send you to like the West Coast, like Seattle or something, to decompose supposedly, but they didn't give you much time. It was a little different back then. Just kind of, you leave the war, and as soon as you get to your West Coast, they send you back home. So you weren't really adapting to the life yet.
Well, I've read.
So it was really
sure. I've read some of those stories where they're in the jungle one day, and then 3 days later they're sitting in their living room, and that sudden shift, it was just too hard to take.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine, but yeah, that's the way it was. But it's a little different now, I think. But I just saw people coming back different. They're not the same. And eventually, a lot of them got better, but you just don't know. PTSD, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Was never really.
We didn't address it at all back then. We didn't even acknowledge it back then.
Oh, exactly. There's just something wrong with you.
Yeah. Get over it, right?
Get over it. It's just, exactly. That's pretty.
Well, we don't learn a lot of lessons as a country, but fortunately, even though it's taken 50, 60 years, at least they have shifted massively towards acknowledging that problem. Maybe we've overshifted, but and getting vets help and making sure that we're not doing what we've done to them in the past and just like, okay, you're out, go ahead and go live your life and be happy. And it's just like, no, they need a little bit more than that. So at least we've corrected in some of those areas by providing the help. Not everybody gets it, but at least it's being provided and acknowledged. And I think that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very important, and they're even bringing in meditation now to some of these things just to help, with the PTSD and stuff. So it's a big problem, obviously, but yeah, it was totally different back then. So
you have all this going through. I can't believe they announced over the loudspeaker at school. I mean, that's pretty traumatic. But you have that. You have the news. You have your friends coming home. You have some friends who didn't come home. That's a lot for an 18-year-old. Sure. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Thinking back, yeah.
And you look in your hand, you got a draft card just waiting for you to
I
finish
got a
school.
draft card, and everybody's trying to avoid being 1A, right?
Yeah, right.
Because you go around, what's your classification? You get your card. You always had to have your draft card with you because that's.
Oh, you did?
You had to sign up. If 18, you had to basically, that was the law.
Sure.
If you're 18, you got to register for the draft, and that's just the way it was. Of course, a lot of privileged people who had the money got out of it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, happened. Sure.
But everybody had the draft card. And what are you? I'm 1A, I'm 1S, or somebody got a medical deferment and something like that.
Yeah,
stuff like that. But everybody had a draft.
Wow.
Status.
Yeah, people don't realize that. I didn't realize that until you just said it.
Yeah. So, but it was on your mind, but I didn't think much about it until I was going to school fine. I went 67, then in like February of 69, they gave you a pre-induction notice, not the draft notice. It was more of taking the physical and getting you prepared basically for the draft. Yeah. So I got a pre-induction notice in like February of 69.
Let me ask you this before you go on with that. And I'm curious, and you may not know, but when they say the draft, does that mean that if you go through the draft, you're pretty much going to be an infantryman? Was that unknown at that time?
It was unknown, but the assumption was pretty much because draftees were only 2-year assignment, basically. Draftees were 2 years versus if you enlist, it's 3 to 4 years, depending on what branch.
Sure.
But it was 2 years, and pretty much they put you where they want. I mean, I knew they're going to put you where they need you. Right. Not everybody got infantry. Some went to cook schools, and it's just luck of the draw, basically.
Yeah, okay. It's not like they took an ASVAB and said, "Hey, you're better suited to do this or that." And that's why I was going. I mean, they do the ASVAB now. No. They probably didn't have it back then.
No, they didn't.
I didn't know if that was. I didn't know if that was part of your pre-induction or not.
No. You didn't know until you got in basic training, basically, until almost the end of basic training, you got your orders. And then you found out your MOS. I mean, I remember I knew my MOS, where I was going. I was lucky. We'll get into that story. But guys just didn't know until the end of the basic training where they were what their MOS was, 11 Bravo or one of
Yeah, so you're all trained as infantry, and then reach your hand in the pot and pull out an MOS, I guess, at the end. Huh?
Exactly. So it was really scary in a way because it's just a guessing game.
Yeah.
But of course, there was to avoid the draft, you joined another branch, perhaps. But the pre-induction notice I had to go down and take a physical. And I passed, and then they reclassified me as 1A.
Oh, no.
It was interesting.
But you were about done with school, right? Or you were done with school?
Just about out. I was dragging it out a little bit, actually. I was
maybe flunk a class here or there.
18 months, but I kind of drug it out. I was going to 2 years here. And it's like, because I was working, not taking all the classes and stuff.
Yeah.
One or two here and there. But anyway, so they sent me a letter and asked and told me if I wanted to protest my draft status, I can meet with the draft board and discuss. So I just said, I need to protest this because I'm still in school. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
But I'm 20 years old at this point.
Okay.
And then I went, so I decided to go down and talk to the draft board. And I was a little scared, of course. You walk into this room, and all these older gentlemen are around the table, and you explain why you think you should be not 1A.
Wow.
And I said, I'm still in school, guys. I'm not really done. Blah 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 blah. And they didn't buy it, but because I figured you've been in this thing for 2 years, you should be done. So okay. So they reclassified me 1A. So I got a new draft card in the mail.
Jeez.
And then I decided I got to get out of this draft because 1A means probably, like you say, I thought infantry for sure. I didn't know.
Well, if and another question, if they classify you as 1A, they don't have a scheduled date they're going to come get you, do they?
No, you never knew. It just depends. They
could call you like tomorrow, and
Oh my goodness.
All you do is get a letter in the mail and time to report.
That is
uh,
crazy.
I know. So I didn't know when that letter was coming. So what I decided, I said, I'm going to beat this draft. I'm going to join the Air Force. And
Okay.
so because I had an uncle who was in the Air Force and he really enjoyed it and talked about it a lot. So I went down the Air Force recruiter and signed up. 4-year commitment. I told them I wanted computers, and they said, so you can take these tests. We'll see if your aptitude for it.
Huh.
So I took all the tests, I passed them all. But there was a waiting list. I think it was several months before they can even take me because people were joining the Air Force and Navy and that stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Void being in Vietnam. So anyway, I just waited.
Okay.
So the 1A classification came in, and I didn't want to wait anymore because I talked to the Air Force guy, and I says, well, if I get drafted, he says, well, we can't stop that.
Oh, geez. So
are you sure? He says, yeah.
wow.
You've got to go. So,
wow.
Man, that's not a good thing. Anyway, so I decided, that's when I decided to join the Air Force, and hopefully they get me out, but they didn't. So I went to the Army recruiter actually and says, if I enlist, can I get like a certain school or something? Because I've been in school for computers. I like to stay in that field.
Yeah.
So they said, well, we happen to have this one agency called the Army Security Agency, ASA, which is a 4-year commitment.
Huh.
And with your skills, we can put you in a data processing job, I said, that's great. So I signed up for 4 years. And ASA is Army Security Agency. It's all top secret crypto stuff. You have to have top secret clearances and all that. It's really it was a branch of the NSA.
Did you have to, was your joining the ASA pending a security background check?
Exactly. Yeah. You had to get a security clearance, of course.
Yeah. If you couldn't get that, then you're off to the infantry.
You're going in the regular Army, basically.
Yeah, right.
But you probably would have been regular Army in a 3-year commitment. You probably would have maybe got some school you wanted or something.
Yeah.
But the ASA, and it was a pretty elite group, some really amazing people. But anyway, yeah. So I joined that 4 years. I got exactly after I signed up, they told me exactly what's pretty much going to happen. And they said, you're going to go to school in Fort Devens, Mass., which is, outside of Boston. So that's where you go to train. That's where we send all the ASA people to get trained. So that's cool. I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
And then your basic I took basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. That's hellhole, but in the middle of summer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, humid and just terrible, but survived. So I signed up for that. Basically, June 30th, 1969. That's when I entered the Army. So went right to basic training, Fort Leonard Wood, 8 weeks there, of course, and got out September. Came home for leave and shipped me off to Boston or Fort Devens, Mass. I was a 74D Delta data processing machine operator, which is computer. Back then, it wasn't the big computers. It was more like, I don't know if you've ever seen those IBM punch cards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not many people remember those, but anyway, the punch cards and machines that read them, and I programmed kind of that kind of stuff because that's what I pretty much went to school for. Huh. So anyway, I knew I was going to go there for school, and Fort Devens, Mass. was really a nice place. It was a really nice area, and met some wonderful guys there, and so that was my training. But a caveat to that is, when I finished my school, it was like end of December, I believe, 69. But my clearance wasn't done.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
Takes forever, I guess. So you can't go to your next station where you're supposed to go without the top secret security clearance. No. So anyway,
you just do casual duty at Fort Devens?
Yeah, you got it.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's almost 2 months of casual duty, KP. I think KP, I spent more. Oh man, I think I
painting
did
rocks.
doing just go here, go there, do
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah.
The KP was miserable. I mean, I did so much KP. It was like, oh man,
Oh God.
you get up three in the morning and then peel potatoes. Back they didn't have potato peelers back then, so you had to do it manually.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty cool. Well, I mean, it's cool to hear about. It's not cool
Yeah.
to do it.
But so the casual duty thing I had to do for I think January, February. Then finally my clearance came through in actually April, so 3 months.
Oh,
My
good.
my orders came through in April 69 or 70, now 70. And I just turned 20 then in February.
During that time, were you able to keep up on anything that you learned in school, or was that just all
No.
getting stale now?
Pretty much.
Oh, jeez.
Hanging out.
Yeah, that's the Army for you.
So anyway, you just sit around and wait. And I did come home, able to take leave and come home a few times. But then also Boston was close. So the weekends I was able to go to Boston with some friends and stuff and hang out. And,
At least they gave you liberty. Imagine how crazy
it was
been
pretty,
if they never let you off
loose.
the base.
Weekends, pretty much you can get out most of the time. So I did have
Nice.
some fun in Boston. It was cool. And I liked Boston. I loved it. The historical stuff is amazing.
Oh,
So it was a good time, other than the casual duty. But
yeah, sure.
when I got my orders, and the ASA they sent people to very remote places typically.
Okay.
Because of the secrecy, the satellites, the communication. It was mostly communication with satellites. Some of the MOSs that were there were, like Morse code operators. I think I mentioned that to you before.
Yeah, absolutely.
We called them diddy boppers, but that was an interesting group because we hang out with those guys when I was at Fort Devens. I had some good friends we used to go to Boston with, and it was pretty tough go being a diddy bop because they listened to Morse code all day, and some guys didn't really make it. They had to opt out because they just they actually went not mental health wise, they weren't too good. They just kind of went crazy a little bit.
I heard that about that too. That school
the percentage was not good, I guess.
Right.
Guys staying in that MOS. So and then you had also at the school you had guys who were doing cryptanalysis type of stuff, analysts decoding all these messages from other places and stuff like that. So it was quite interesting to see all the different jobs that people had and the secrecy involved and everything, because we went to school and it was really all top secret stuff. You had to
well, nowadays we call it, there's signals intelligence or SIGINT and HUMINT and ELINT. Were they calling it that back then at that time?
It was a combination of the it started out initially ASA was signal intelligence, and they started integrating these other kind of jobs and MOSs with it, and then now I think the ASA went away in 76 or 7, and they kind of integrated with military intelligence, and they have a different name for it now. I can't remember, but they integrated all that because you still work with the NSA and stuff like that, the Pentagon. So
I think it's is it INSCOM now?
I think that's right. Yeah,
Intelligence and Security Command. So.
Yeah, something like
so
that.
interesting branch offs and how you get that. You got NSA, you got, of course, CIA, but you have so many intelligence communities out there. It's interesting to see how that INSCOM had its early stages as the Army Security Agency, and you got in there in 1970. Wow, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So after you're done with that casual duty, where'd they ship you off to after that?
Like I said, it was remote sites. I went to Asmara, Ethiopia.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And some of the other places they sent people was Aleutian Islands, Simia, Alaska. It's off the Aleutian Islands, which is terrible to me. But and Ankara, Turkey. There's some other places. Germany was one, but most of these places are very remote because of the satellites and the secrecy. But Asmara, Ethiopia is interesting because it sits on almost an 8,000 foot mountain. It's higher than Denver, of course, altitude wise.
Sure.
But the weather was great, 80 degrees most of the time.
Wow.
But
That's got to be something to get those orders and go, where is this place? I have no idea.
I had no idea. Yeah. I looked it up. I learned a little bit before I went. I started doing some research on it. It's pretty cool. It's an amazing history. The Ethiopian people are wonderful. But I was stationed. Asmara is now it's called Eritrea, which is broke away from Ethiopia.
Oh, okay.
So it's now called Eritrea. It's the northern part of Ethiopia in the top corner over there, close to the Red Sea there. But so it was really very remote. But yeah, I got my orders and I was glad. And then, but we flew in as civilians. You couldn't have military uniform on when you fly into some of these duty stations.
Okay.
So I had to have one of those official passports, not a military passport. So I flew in as a civilian. I flew from here to New York to, I think I was Greece, Athens, and then from Athens to Cairo, and then Cairo to Ethiopia.
Jesus.
So it was.
So you grew up in Denver, right? Spent your whole
Right.
life in Denver.
Yeah.
And then in the course of a little under, a year, now all of a sudden you're halfway across the world.
Yeah, I've never been out of country. So, I mean, the furthest place I've been was California on a family vacation. That was it.
So I assume, I know Vietnam dominated that time period, but Cold War was also at its height as well.
Exactly. And if you look at Ethiopia, the reason they picked Asmara is just because longitudinally you can see we're in the Middle East pretty much. We're monitoring a lot of the Middle East, obviously.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the stuff, it's direct line almost to Russia. So there's a lot of interceptions going on there. So strategically they knew what they're doing when they put the base there.
Sure.
And they had an agreement with the Ethiopian government at the time. And I don't know if you remember the name Haile Selassie. If you read your history,
no.
he was an emperor of Ethiopia. They had emperors. He was an emperor. So little guy, about 5'1".
Really?
he came and visited the post every now and then. So the United States was funding a lot of this stuff for the Ethiopian government. But he was an emperor. So that was, it's amazing history. The people are great. But when I arrived in Ethiopia, it was, like I say, just flying. They had an airport, which is nice. Ethiopian Airlines, I remember that. But yeah, so to get to the base, and I got the base was called Kagnew Station, Kagnew.
Huh.
And actually, there's a I was looking at it the other day. I was trying to, get my thoughts about when I was there, but there's a website called KagnewStation.com.
Oh,
and it was put up a few years ago. I forgot about it. But anyway, it's been there since the 40s. It's not no longer there now because there's a lot of history going on. I'll mention some of that later. But communication stations, satellite dishes all over the place. And we had different branches, Navy, Air Force, and Marines and Army were there. Huh. So the Navy doing a lot of the communication, STRATCOM stuff, and the Air Force. So there was about, I think they said 4,000 GIs there.
Wow.
And actually dependents were able to go over too, which is interesting. So
that's unusual.
Families and kids. And it was an 18-month tour initially.
Oh, okay.
That was my tour. Yeah, it was a great place. Like they say, the families were there, dependent housing. We had, nice barracks. So
they must have had some amenities
headquarters
out there
company.
for you.
Oh, it was great. They had everything for us. I was impressed.
Oh, did they really? They have like a BX and all that kind of stuff. Or at least you could go.
That had pools, bowling alley, movie theater.
Well, that's
almost like home.
That's not a bad trade-off for signing up rather than getting drafted, I suppose.
Yeah, I was very, very fortunate. Yeah, so I was obviously surprised with everything there, and I was assigned to headquarters company, which my data processing. But it was quite interesting, and then they had the different clubs. Had an Oasis club for the enlisted men, and the top 5 club they called it for the E6s and up, and then they had the officers club, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
So it was really good. They employed all the Ethiopian people with the waiters and stuff like that. So they employed a lot of the locals, help supporting the base.
That's not a bad arrangement. Yeah.
No, it was great. And then in our barracks, we had houseboys.
Oh, jeez.
So I didn't have to make my bed in the morning.
You'd have to shine. Did he shine your boots?
Oh yeah.
Oh.
So it's not like the Army, right? Because you
right.
got to make your bed and all that stuff. So it was pretty good. I mean, and I think we paid him. I paid $5 a month to our houseboy.
Yeah.
And I remember his name exactly. His name was Sammy, and he had a family. Because the Ethiopians are very poverty country. It was very low.
Right,
I think the minimum the yearly annual wage was maybe like $500-600 a year if you're lucky. So it was very impoverished country.
I would forward to guess that any country that has an emperor probably doesn't have very successful lower class people, I would imagine.
Exactly. So that's the way it was. But we had $5 a month, and out of all the GI, there's probably had like cubes in our barracks, and there's probably Sammy got about 10 GIs or so.
Sure, not a bad deal for 1970.
Make some good money.
Yeah.
And like I said, they made your beds, change your boots, and all that good stuff. All we had to do is dress and go to work.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal. Yeah. And you didn't have any. It wasn't like you had a drill sergeant yelling at you or anything. So
no,
because you're just in a different part of the Army, right?
Oh yeah. It was very un-Army like because we had a lot the you can after work, you can put on your civvies and go to the club or the restaurant or whatever you wanted to do, movies and hang out. You can go downtown if you wanted to, explore the Ethiopian culture and stuff. So we had very, very good freedom there. It was a great tour. Met some great guys, as you know, when you're in the military, you meet some amazing guys you never forget.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Can you talk about your duties at all while you were at Kagnew?
Yeah,
is that still?
They had several, they call them tracks, where they're different areas outside of the base, out in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. And Ethiopia was pretty barren and land. It was pretty,
okay.
Actually had a drought and stuff going on, so it was really brownish.
Oh.
But we had to take a bus every day out to wherever there's 3 or 4 tracks for the communication guys. And we had, I can't remember where we were, but we were on one of those tracks where our data processing center was. And they took us out there every day. It's all, barbed wire cages around the whole installation there. And then the big satellite dishes, communication towers, all kinds of that stuff. But I didn't do a lot of top secret stuff. I'll put it to you that way. I was processing payroll and, doing all this stuff to pay the GIs and just doing computer stuff, basically.
Okay.
So I didn't get into the top secret stuff, although there were some analysts who worked in computers with the top secret stuff. But I was mostly kind of an admin computer guy, just doing keeping the base afloat, getting the paychecks, and just doing stuff.
Were you able to kind of dabble in some of the computer stuff that you had a passion for, or at least gone to school for? Were you able to kind of toy around with that? Did anybody say, "Hey, let me show you this stuff," and come over there and start working on it a little bit?
I didn't get to work on the big computers like the IBMs.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I was trained in the big computers, IBM stuff. But I was trained on these machines called accounting machines, which were reading these punch cards, and you actually wired them to do these logic steps to do things like print a check or, stuff like that.
So
I had to wire these boards to do the task, whatever we're doing, reports, or we're doing payroll or whatever, and they had them print the checks out. You put them in the printer and they go. So I did, I still did, all that.
Well, you still got to be around. You got to at least get some of that functional understanding, which is key for what you wanted to do later.
Exactly. So that was good. So it was an 8 to 5 job for me, but like a lot of those guys had, it was 24/7 for when you're into the intelligence stuff. So there were a lot of guys working really night graveyard and shifts and stuff like that. But I was pretty much 8 to 5, and after 5, you're on your own. It wasn't like the real Army where you have drill sergeants. We didn't do any inspections, I don't think. I don't remember any of that.
Just don't get in trouble, right?
Just don't get, yeah, exactly. Don't go downtown and get thrown in jail.
And that's not easy for a single guy at that age, right?
Oh, I know. Yeah. And the clubs were, had entertainment in the evening, and Fridays and Saturdays, it was band nights. And I'll tell you about my career. I played in a rock band in Ethiopia too.
Oh, you did?
I did, and I got pictures. I was just looking at them. Some guy saved these pictures of us playing. But anyway, I got some of my own actually. I played in a garage band in high school, and never did anything. Practiced a lot, never did anything.
What'd you play?
I played regular guitar, bass. Then when I went to Ethiopia, I played bass. But
who were your influences when you were doing that garage band?
Back in those days, the Beatles and Rolling Stones.
Oh yeah, that was
all those '60s then, right? Guys. Yeah. It was fun. I did it for 2 years in high school, but never mounted anything. But I always loved music and played the guitar. Yeah. But anyway, I met this guy in Ethiopia. He was kind of in the same. He was in the same barracks, and his name was Jim Barton. Good. Still contact him with him once in a while, but he had an acoustic. He was playing on his bed and stuff, and say, "What are you doing?" So we start talking, and then we start talking about, "Hey, why don't we start a band?"
Oh, sure.
And so we found a guy from New York, be a drummer, Tony Grado, nice Italian kid. He plays the drums, and then I'll play the bass, and Jim was the lead guitar, so that's fine, good. And then we met a guy from Tennessee. His name was Davy Crockett.
No kidding.
From Tennessee, played the organ, so that's cool. Well, we can do something. Our instruments are. I don't have a bass guitar.
Yeah.
Jim had a guitar he can ship from the States, and Tony had some drums he can ship from New York, and we got a lead singer, Don Wells from Baltimore, and he can sing. So because we just started sitting around playing guitar, singing in the barracks, and just said, "Hey, let's do this." Because there were some other bands on bass too, so it was. So it was kind of fun. The weekends you can go listen to music and drink some beer, and that was fun.
Yeah, but now you got a group. You can start writing some stuff or doing. that makes time go by a little faster.
Oh yeah, it was great. So yeah, we started our band and I had to go downtown and buy a bass guitar and an amplifier because I didn't have any of that stuff.
Of course, yeah.
So it's quite expensive down. And Ethiopia was kind of a mixture of cultures. It was. The Italians were invaded it in the 30s, I believe, and then I think the British had something involved in cult. So you meet a lot of Italian businesses down there, and still some people from Italy there. And
wow!
So they were kind of mixed in with the Ethiopian people. So there's an Italian influence in there. So it's kind of quite interesting. But they owned a lot of the businesses downtown and stuff. It was so I had got my guitar. We started doing gigs at the Oasis Club. That was the name of the Listed Man's Club.
Okay.
And then the GIs loved it. And of course, girls from the city came in, keep the guys company, dancing. Everybody loved to dance, so it was good. So that's my rock and roll career. But we did, we had a lot of guys who helped out, the groupies type of guys, just hanging out because hey, you're away from home. You play some old songs for them.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun. And we played in the Officers Club actually a couple times. And then downtown, we played in a couple nightclubs down there. They let us do that. So
wow, it really took off, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, it was fun. So that's some good memories I have of that. So like I say, it was really not a hardship duty at all. Compared to a lot of other guys had to go through, but
true. I mean, it wasn't in that theater or a wartime environment, but you still that stuff wasn't handed to you. You went out and made something of it, and you
exactly, you make it the best you can, and
absolutely
versus complaining about it.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, that was fun, but there was also some stuff going on in the politics in Ethiopia at the time. There was kind of a war, inter-country war, and actually a lot of the there's a group called the ELF, Ethiopian Liberation Front. And they told us about it, when we kind of got there, that these guys are they're fighting the countrymen, trying to separate Eritrea from Ethiopia is basically what they're trying to do. They want to be their own state or country. So beware, because the Asmara was on this 8,000-foot mountain just about. And when you went down, if you went down, these winding roads are not like Colorado. They're very narrow, and most of them are dirt. And you go down, down to sea level or so close to it. It was a long trip. But anyway, these ELF guys, you see guys on the side of the road with these weapons, rifles and stuff but they didn't bother us too much. They stopped us a couple of times going down the mountain, but nothing ever happened. So it was a little tense at times, but
just to see people standing alongside the road with guns.
With weapons.
That could be a little tense.
Yeah. Cause we didn't have any, as secure as that base was, there wasn't, there was hardly, I think the MPs and there was weapons there, M14s and some other things, but nothing, if we ever had to do anything, it was not any weapons for us to use.
Did you have an issued weapon, or were they all kept in arms room, obviously?
No, we never issued a weapon at all.
Okay.
Even though in basic, we, learned all that. And we had M14s to use in basic, but so it was kind of scary at times. And there's a couple instances where there was some threats coming from. Well, I think the Soviet Union then was supplying weapons to the ELF and AK-47s and
of course the proxy war stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, they helped out with that. So anyway, there was a couple times when we had some drills. We had to do a couple drills where if the base was attacked, we had to, because they had even Chinese rockets and stuff, mortars and stuff they talked about.
Yeah.
But we didn't have any weapons to really fight. There's only a few, maybe the MPs and a few other people may be able to have them. So anyway, there was a couple drills we did at night, just to, they assigned everybody to a certain spot, and just in case something happened, take care. And the dependents were still there, I believe. So
that's
scary.
We had
to protect a lot of those, different housing areas and stuff. So it was a couple drills. One was almost happened, but it didn't, because at night they said, "Be ready, we're going to go."
Yeah,
but it never happened, so that was good. But after that, those threats start coming through. They send all the dependents back home. They said, "You got to go, because it's not going to be safe here anymore. We don't know what's going to happen." So they send all. I think it was maybe late 1970 that they sent all the dependents home. So I'm sure it was very disappointing for a lot of people, but that's the way it was.
Well, sure. You stayed there for about 18 months.
Well, nope. I got because of the situation, all these threats. I got out 6 months early, so I only served a year.
Okay.
Going back to the States. Okay, good.
Oh, they sent you back.
Sent me back to the States. Got my orders April of 70, so I only spent a year there, basically.
Okay.
Which is, I was fine with me with the 18 months. Yeah, that's okay. Cut my orders, assigned to Arlington Hall, Virginia, which is where kind of an ASA base outside of DC there.
Okay.
So I was there for a little bit. Then they were winding down. The war was kind of winding down. So they reassigned me to the regular army. So because there was no room for me anymore. So early out, basically. My 4-year commitment turned into a 3-year commitment. So they reassigned me to Fort Holabird, Maryland, which is the place where the headquarters for CID, as far as the repository. It's called the Crime Records Repository.
Okay.
Base. So I was reassigned regular army, wasn't ASA anymore.
And they gave you that option to get out earlier?
No, it was their choice. No, I had no option.
So they drew down the ASA and you were out of a job.
The ASA sent me to Arlington Hall. Then they sent me to Fort McNair for a few weeks before I was able to go to Fort Holabird in Baltimore. So it was their decision. I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, they were bringing down the ASA people, that maybe the ones that weren't critical. Maybe, I don't know what the decision was, but I went to Fort Holabird, Maryland. Was there for about 8 months and got out
Huh.
from there. So yeah, that's kind of the story.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, what an experience.
Yeah. So I got an early out, got out in 72 in June 30th, 1972. And I did stay in Baltimore for a while because I had some friends and just wanted to hang out after I got out of the Army, spend, through summer hanging out, doing things. I actually drew unemployment for 3 months. Then I came back home. So
So what were your plans initially? I mean, you're just kind of letting everything flow. You're staying with friends. Did you have a long-term thing? You have your Parks business degree.
right.
So did you have a long-term plan at that time, or did something just kind of find you and you fell into it?
Well, I wanted to go back home, but I actually met a girl in Baltimore.
That'll do it.
So decided to get married. So, I mean, I had to come back to Denver. I was running out of money. So,
Oh, sure.
and get a job basically. And she stayed in Baltimore until I got settled down and everything. So yeah, I mean, it just happened pretty quickly. So I came back to Denver in like 72 fall. Got a job in Martin Marietta doing, mostly computer operating stuff. Wasn't programming, but getting my foot in the door. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of it. And then basically shipped her back here, and then we got married, and the rest is history. Yeah, so I started my computer career basically at Martin, computer operator, and I got some other, and then finally got into programming, where I wanted to go. So like I say, the Army's was the stepping stone for me. I'm very fortunate that I was able to, typically when you go in the service, a lot of times you don't get the job you want when you get out. So
No, true.
so I was very fortunate with that. So I was able to pursue my career in IT. Now it's IT. It's called IT. So
Yeah, that's a fancy word for it.
yeah, fancy for IT. But I was a computer programmer, software designer, engineer, all that kind of stuff. Did that for 40 years, basically.
Wow.
So yeah, it turned out well. So that's why I have some good fond memories of the military, even though it was during a troubled time. I was very fortunate to have that experience. And like I say, the friends you meet in the military, you never forget them, as you know.
Oh, absolutely.
I still see their faces. I still know their names, and I can picture them, right now. It's just kind of amazing how that happens. But yeah, that was so cool.
Sometimes when you have the shorter career, you do one or two hitches, it's a little bit more indelible, because I did 20, but it's hard for me to think back to certain instances. But yourself and many other people I've interviewed who had that 3, 4, 6 year career, all those memories are very crystal. They're very solidified and very unique. So
yeah, exactly. Especially having one tour with 1 year with all these guys you spend 24/7 with, pretty much. So
yeah, that's true. And eventually they get on your nerves somewhat, but you remember that too, so all that gets overlooked. Do you keep in contact with you said you talked to that guy who was in the band a little bit, right? Once a year or so?
Yeah. Him and we maybe once a year one guy sends out this newsletter, not newsletter, Christmas card, and we all answer that. And
okay.
I did go visit the guitar player, Jim, a few years ago. We had kind of our own reunion. He was living in Oregon, and we hung out for a few days, and it was kind of nice to see him. But he moved to Florida. I haven't heard from him since. But yeah, it's amazing. But like this ASA thing there's a pretty close knit group. If I went back to the website, and there's tons of pictures. And
is there really?
Yeah, and some of these go back to the early 50s and stuff. Guys were there at Kagnew Station, yeah. And I forgot there was we had a radio and TV station too for dependents that had kid shows, like kids puppet shows, and they had news and music. And then actually my bunkmate worked at the radio station. He's from Massachusetts. So, and we actually played at the TV station. They had a Saturday, a Dick Clark American Bandstand thing.
Wow. Awesome. Imagine if you had a video of that. That would have been fantastic.
I know. I wish I had, technology wasn't good back then. We had some of the stuff we have today. I would have recorded a lot of that stuff.
Do you want to give a plug for plant-based nutrition and lifestyle?
Sure, I appreciate it. Yeah, I just 40 years as an IT professional and decided to change careers at the age of 60.
Yeah, that's about when you do it, right?
Yeah, and
that's the plan.
Decided to become a nutritionist because I had to change my diet because of health issues and became plant-based, which is the vegan word, or it's plant-based now. So yeah, I started a private practice, went back to school actually, and got my diploma in nutrition. So I'm just trying to help people get well. So yeah, just eat some healthy food and do that. So yeah, that's what I do now. But I'm not retiring. I'm 72 now, and I still feel young, so it's good.
And it seems, if I can ask you a question about it, it seems from talking with my wife, who is you're mentoring her. That's the best way to say it.
Yeah, I call it client.
And she says, it's been the biggest help because she was doing it on her own, and it was frustrating. Right. And there's only so much a blog, can get your questions answered. So you've been fantastic for her. But for those those out there who are wondering, I would imagine, and myself included, I imagine the hardest thing to do is the transition.
Exactly.
And you can help people through that. Is that correct?
Yeah, help you transition to it's really a lifestyle. I don't like to call it diet because it's a lifestyle. And change is hard for everybody, obviously. It's a lifestyle change because our lifestyles today in this country, there's health issues we have with diabetes, heart disease, and all this is just terrible. And I try to help people get over those types of things. Heart disease was in my family, and I'm basically reversed my heart disease, just changing the food I eat. So, and it does work that way. But yeah, just more of education, just to tell people there's some options, because most people won't change, of course, especially as you get older, they don't want to change.
That is the hardest, yeah.
That's difficult. But yeah, just out there, and I'm just glad I can help people because that's my new purpose in life, is to just help and educate, and see where it goes.
Where can people find you at?
I do have a website. It's a long name, plant-based nutrition lifestyle.com. It's all one word.
Okay, plant-based nutrition lifestyle.com.
Yep, that's my website. Lots of information. So yeah, I appreciate the plug.
Absolutely. Jerry, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. You told me some stuff about the Army I never would have imagined in my life. I was a dumb old field artilleryman, so that focus was easy. But there's so many other things that happen within the Army, within the military, and you just exemplified that very, very well. So thanks for your time today, Jerry. It's been a pleasure.
Marty, it's been a pleasure too. I enjoyed it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story.
I'd like to thank Jerry for joining us today. If you'd like to know more about living a plant-based lifestyle, please go to his website, www.plantbasednutritionlifestyle.com, all one word. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and make sure to download the next for more service origin stories. Until next time, on your feet, fall out.